The ship Horizon Dawn drifted quietly through deep space, its silver hull shining under the cold light of distant stars. Inside, everything was calm. The low hum of the engines, the soft flicker of lights, and the rhythmic beeps from control panels. Most of the crew were asleep. Only a few night shift officers watched over the systems. Lieutenant Mara Lynn, a human engineer, liked the night hours. She said space was most honest when it was silent. Mara was 27, with short brown hair always tucked behind one ear and a habit of talking to herself while she worked. She wasn't one of those loud, fearless types. She preferred tools to people, machines to meetings. Still, the crew liked her. She was calm, kind, and brave when it counted. That night, Mara was doing a simple systems check in the cargo bay. The large metal doors hissed open as she stepped inside. Rows of supply crates stretched into the shadows. It was colder here. The kind of cold that made her breath fog slightly in the air. She rubbed her hands together and sighed. "Just one more check and I can sleep," she muttered. She walked between the crates, checking the labels. Food packs, spare filters, tools, and power cells. Everything looked fine. She tapped her data pad, marking each crate as cleared. Then she heard it, a sound, soft and quick, like a tiny squeak. Mara froze. She lifted her head, eyes narrowing. For a second, everything was silent again. The hum of the ship, the distant vibration of the engine. Nothing else. Then there was again a faint chirp, like something small trying to call for help. Her heartbeat quickened. The cargo bay was sealed. Nothing alive was supposed to be here except her. Mara turned on her wrist light, its white beam cutting through the shadows. She took a slow step forward. "Hello," she said softly. Her voice echoed against the metal walls. Another sound, this time behind the crates on the left. Something scurried. She caught a quick glimpse of movement, small and fast. Too small to be a person. Her first thought was a maintenance drone. Maybe one got loose. But the sound wasn't mechanical. It was soft, alive. She crouched down, moving the light carefully across the floor. A small food packet lay open, half-eaten. Her stomach twisted. Okay, definitely not a drone. She followed the trail of crumbs behind a stack of containers. The space between them was dark and narrow. She could barely fit her hand through. Slowly, she leaned closer, her light trembling slightly in her grasp. Something looked back at her. Two golden eyes glowed in the dark, wide, bright, and unblinking. Mara gasped and stumbled back, almost dropping her light. What the... The creature moved forward slowly, crawling into view. It was small, about the size of a house cat, but with longer limbs and short silver fur that shimmered under the light. Its ears were sharp, its tail flicked like a whip, and tiny claws scraped the metal floor. It tilted its head and chirped again, almost like it was asking something. Mara blinked, heart racing. "You're not from this ship, are you?" The creature sniffed the air and took a step closer. Mara stayed still. Her training told her to report it immediately, but her curiosity overpowered caution. She whispered, "Hey there, little one." The creature's nose twitched. Then, with sudden energy, it jumped straight onto her chest. Whoa! Mara staggered backward, nearly falling. The creature dug its claws into her jacket, clinging tightly. She tried to pull it off, but it wrapped its tail around her arm and made a small, growling noise that sounded more scared than angry. Okay, easy," Mara said, holding her arm still. The little thing trembled against her, its golden eyes darting around the room. It wasn't attacking, it was frightened. She took a slow breath. "Hey, it's all right. I'm not going to hurt you." The creature blinked, then made a soft purring sound, a strange vibration that felt warm against her chest. Mara felt her shoulders relax. The little alien was kind of cute. After a few minutes, it loosened its grip slightly, though it still refused to let go of her jacket. She looked down at it, whispering, "You're a brave one, huh?" Sneaking onto a human ship. Her mind raced. How did it even get here? The Horizon Dawn hadn't landed in weeks. Maybe it crawled in from a supply drop, or maybe it came from one of the moons they passed by last system. Mara touched her comm link. "Bridge, this is Lieutenant Lin in Cargo Bay. I've got something here. Not human. Alive." The voice of the night officer came through, calm but curious. "Something? Define something, Lieutenant." Mara looked at the creature, still clinging to her jacket. It looked back up at her, golden eyes blinking slowly. "It's small," she said finally. "Fur, tail, claws. Looks like a cub of some kind. Not aggressive. More scared." "Understood," came the reply. "Stay there. We're sending security and a biologist." "Copy that," Mara said, though her voice was soft. She looked down at the alien cub again and smiled faintly. "Don't worry. You're safe now." The cub made a low, content sound and nuzzled closer into her jacket, as if it understood. Outside the cargo bay, the ship continued its silent journey through the dark. But inside, something new had begun, a strange friendship between a human and a tiny alien cub who had no idea how much laughter and chaos it was about to bring to the Horizon Dawn. And as Mara stood there in the cold cargo bay, holding the trembling little creature, she didn't know that this moment, this strange, quiet night, would soon become one of the most unforgettable stories in the ship's history. The next morning on the Horizon Dawn, word spread fast. Lieutenant Mara Lin had found a living alien cub in the cargo bay. By breakfast, every crew member was talking about it. When Mara entered the mess hall, all eyes turned to her, not because of her, but because of what was clinging to her jacket. The small alien cub hung onto her shoulder like a furry backpack, its tail curled around her arm. Its golden eyes were half closed, and it made a soft purring noise, clearly comfortable. Someone laughed from across the room. "Lieutenant, is that thing glued to you?" Mara rolled her eyes. "Feels like it." She tried to lift it off, but the cub growled quietly and tightened its gree. The crew laughed again. "Looks like you've been adopted," said Ensign Tully, the communications officer. "Congratulations, Mom." Even the captain, Commander Harris, stopped by to see it, a tall man with a calm face and too many years of service. Harris crossed his arms and raised an eyebrow. "Lieutenant Lin, why is there a wild animal on my ship?" Mara stood a little straighter. "Sir, I tried to move it. It refused. Also, it might bite anyone else who tries." The captain gave a long sigh. "Wonderful. So now we have a stowaway with claws." The crew chuckled again, but Mara could see the captain's lips twitch, just slightly. "Why?" The ship's biologist, Dr. Kellen Voss, soon joined them. He was tall, thin, and always looked like he hadn't slept enough. He adjusted his glasses and stared at the creature. "Fascinating," he murmured. "It's definitely a predator species. Look at the teeth." "Yeah, I noticed," Mara said dryly. Kellen knelt closer, tapping his scanner. "Strong claws. Warm-blooded. Heart rate normal. Definitely Yoon. Gee, probably only a few months old. I've seen data on similar creatures from the Arctis moon. Solitary hunters, highly intelligent. This one must have wandered into one of our supply drops." "Can we keep it?" Tully joked. "No," said the captain immediately. But the cub, as if on cue, chirped happily and rubbed its head against Mara's neck. The entire crew laughed again. "Looks like it is already decided," Tully said, grinning. Over the next few hours, Mara tried everything to separate from her new shadow. She tried offering food, toys, even a warm blanket in a small crate. Nothing worked. The cub would wait until she turned away and then leap straight back onto her jack. By midday, Mara gave up. She was working on a console in the engineering bay with the cub sitting on her shoulder like a furry co-pilot. Chief Engineer Patel walked in and nearly dropped his wrench. "Lieutenant, there's a thing on you." "I'm aware, Chief." "Does it bite?" "Only if you touch me," she said, smirking. The cub tilted his head at Patel and made a low chirp, as if agreeing. The chief backed away slowly. "Noted." Mara started to notice little things about it. When she spoke softly, it listened. When she laughed, it chirped. When someone shouted nearby, it would growl softly, as if protecting her. It wasn't just playful. It was aware, watching, learning, reacting. During lunch, it tried to steal a spoon from her tray. During maintenance, it climbed into her tool bag and refused to come out. During ship inspection, it sat on the captain's chair when no one was looking until Mara called its name. Except she hadn't given it one yet. That evening, in her cabin, Mara sat on her bunk and looked at the cub resting on her lap. "All right, little troublemaker," she said. "If you're staying, you need a name." The cub blinked slowly, tail swishing. How about Patch? No, too cute." It chirped. "Claws." Another chirp, louder this time. Mara smiled. "Claws it is." Later, she recorded her log entry. Day 1 with Claws. "He's clingy, curious, and maybe too smart. The crew finds it hilarious. The captain pretends he doesn't. I think he's secretly amused. No sign of illness or aggression, though I do think he understands more than he should." She looked over at Claws. He was sitting on her desk now, staring out the small window at the stars. The quiet hum of the engines filled the room. For a brief moment, Mara felt peaceful. That's when the lights flickered. Once, twice. Then a small power surge made her monitor go dark for 2 seconds before flicking back on. Mara frowned. Weird. That shouldn't happen. Claw's ears perked up. He made a low sound, almost a growl, and looked toward the wall vents. "What is it?" Mara asked softly. The cub hissed again, tail puffing up. The next second, a faint metallic click echoed from inside the vent. Mara froze. She stared at the vent grill. The sound came again, slow, steady, deliberate, like something crawling through the ducts. Claw's growl deepened. His eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. Mara stood up slowly, heart beating fast. Easy, it's probably just a maintenance drone. But deep down, she wasn't sure. The cub leaped from the desk onto her shoulder, pressing close, eyes fixed on the vent. It didn't blink. Mara swallowed hard. Somewhere inside the walls of the Horizon Dawn, something else was moving. And as the lights flickered once more, Mara realized one thing. Her new little friend wasn't just playful. He was warning her. By the next morning, the Horizon Dawn was alive with laughter. Everyone on the ship had heard about Lieutenant Mara Lynn's new pet, and no one wanted to miss seeing it in person. The moment Mara stepped into the corridor, conversation stopped. Heads turned. Smiles spread. Because on her shoulder, as always, clung the small silver-furred alien cub, tail wrapped tightly around her neck like a warm scarf. "Morning, Lieutenant," someone called. "How's your little guard dog?" Mara sighed, half smiling. "He's not a dog, Ensign." The cub made a low chirp, puffing out its chest as if agreeing. The nearby crew burst out laughing. Chief Patel grinned from the other end of the hall. "You better keep him on a leash before he tries to take command." Mara shot back. "He already runs the place." Everyone laughed harder, and even Patel couldn't hide his grin. In the mess hall, it was chaos. Mara tried to eat her breakfast, but Claus had other plans. The little creature sat on the table, sniffing everything with curious eyes. When she turned her head for just 1 second, he grabbed a piece of fruit and dashed to the end of the table. "Claus," she said sharply. "Drop it." The cub froze, mouth full, then looked her dead in the eyes and swallowed the whole thing. Half the crew burst out laughing. Someone clapped. "Smart one, isn't he?" said Ensign Tully between laughs. "Already knows how to win arguments." Mara groaned. "He's going to be the end of me. Or the start of something hilarious," Tully said. Even the captain, who tried to look serious, couldn't help but chuckle when he passed by. "Lieutenant, make sure your companion doesn't eat my ship." Mara saluted playfully. "Aye, Captain. I'll ration his fruit intake." Despite the humor, something strange was happening. Whenever Claus was around, the crew seemed happier. The long shifts felt lighter, the silence less heavy. Humans and aliens alike. Even the quiet navigation officer, who rarely spoke, smiled when a cub ran past with a stolen spoon or climbed up the mess counter like a mountain explorer. The Horizon Dawn was a research ship. Days were often long, quiet, and filled with routine. But now, every day started with laughter, and the sound of Claus' chirps echoing through the halls. Mara didn't mind. Not really. She had grown used to his presence. His soft fur brushing against her arm, the little purring sound he made when she worked. Still, she couldn't shake one thing. Every night when the lights dimmed, Claus changed. He would stop playing, stop chirping. His eyes would glow faintly, golden like tiny lanterns. And he'd stare at the air vents, listening. That afternoon, Dr. Kellenvoss called her to the biology lab. "I ran a scan on some of the food packs from cargo," he said, gesturing to screen. "Traces of saliva. Same DNA as your friend." Mara nodded. "So he was hiding there before I found him." "Yes, but here's the interesting part," Kellen continued. "His species, at least the closest match we have, isn't normally found near human shipping lanes. That means he came from somewhere new, somewhere we haven't mapped yet." Mara frowned. "Then how did he end up here?" Kellen sighed, rubbing his eyes. "I wish I knew, but there's something else. His senses are advanced. He reacts to frequencies humans can't hear. That might explain why he gets nervous around the vents." "The vents," Mara murmured, remembering the faint clicking she'd heard the night before. "Could be nothing," Kellen said, "but keep an eye out. I'll analyze the rest of the cargo, just in case." Later that evening, Mara walked through the ship's long corridor with Claus on her shoulder. The lights hummed softly overhead, and everything seemed peaceful again, until Claus stiffened. He stopped purring and turned his head sharply toward the wall. His fur bristled. Mara froze. "What is it?" The cub growled, a low, deep sound she hadn't heard before. Mara followed his gaze. The metal wall was still, the vent unmoving, but she swore she heard something faint inside. A scrape, then silence. Her skin prickled. "Okay, we're both tired," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "Long day." But as she walked on, Claus stayed tense, his eyes locked on the shadows above. That night, the crew gathered in the lounge for movie time, a rare break from duty. Someone brought popcorn. Someone else played old Earth music. Mara arrived late, Claus perched like always on her shoulder. The room erupted in laughter again. "Finally," shouted Tully, "the star of the show has arrived." Someone tossed a popcorn kernel toward Claus. He caught it midair, sniffed it, and sneezed. The crew laughed even harder. Mara shook her head, smiling. "You're a menace." The cub chirped proudly and curled up on her lap. The movie began, but halfway through, the lights flickered, just for a moment, Everyone groaned, assuming it was another minor power surge. But Mara's heart skipped. She felt Claw's body stiffen again. His fur rose. His ears pointed toward the ceiling. He was growling. Mara looked up, followed his gaze. The air vent above them was trembling, ever so slightly. Probably the circulation system. Someone said lazily, but Mara knew better. She could feel it too, that uneasy stillness in the air. Claws didn't move, didn't blink. His golden eyes stayed fixed on the vent. Something was up there. Something that didn't belong. And as laughter slowly faded into silence, a thought crossed Mara's mind. Quiet, cold, and certain. Whatever was inside those vents wasn't done watching them. The next morning, the horizon dawn felt different. Not louder, not busier, just tense. Something invisible hung in the air, like static before a storm. Lieutenant Mara Lynn woke early. She hadn't slept well. Every time she closed her eyes, she kept hearing that faint clicking sound inside the vents. The one Claws had growled at. The cub slept curled up beside her, tail wrapped around her arm, breathing softly. In the morning light, he looked peaceful, harmless, almost like a normal pet. But Mara knew better now. His instincts were too sharp to ignore. When she stood up, his eyes opened instantly, alert, golden, and serious. He chirped quietly, as if asking, "Is it back?" Mara smiled tiredly. "I don't know, little one, but we're going to find out." By mid-shift, the engineering bay was alive with noise. Crew members moved between consoles, fixing circuits and checking systems. A small power fluctuation had been reported again, minor, but strange. Chief Patel scratched his head. Power cells are draining faster than expected. No sign of a short circuit. It's like something's pulling extra energy from the system. Could it be the climate control units? Mara asked, scanning her tablet. Patel shook his head. No, this is deeper, core level. He frowned. Something's feeding off our ship. Mara froze. Feeding? That word stuck in her mind like a shard of glass. She glanced down at Claws, who sat beside her boots, watching the engineers work. His fur bristled slightly, ears flicking toward the far wall. "Chief," Mara said carefully, "what section is that wall connected to?" Patel looked up from his monitor. "Storage grid 4B. The same section where I found him," she whispered. Patel blinked. "What?" But before she could explain, Claws suddenly hissed, loud and sharp. His fur stood on end. Mara's tablet beeped. A red light flashed on the screen. "System breach, power junction 4B. Damn it." Patel barked. "Team with me. Lieutenant, you're coming too." The group rushed down the corridor, boots echoing on the metal floor. The emergency lights flickered as they approached the storage area. When the doors opened, a strange smell hit them, like burnt metal and ozone. Sparks crackled from a damaged panel near the corner. The walls pulsed faintly, as if something behind them was moving. "What the hell?" Patel muttered. Mara knelt near the floor, shining her wrist light. A dark fluid, not oil, trailed from the power conduit to the ventilation shaft. It shimmered slightly like it was alive. Claws crouched low beside her, growling. His tail lashed like a whip. Mara whispered, "You smell it too, don't you?" The cub chirped once, short and urgent, then darted toward the vent, claws scraping metal. "Wait!" Mara shouted, but he was already there. He pressed his nose to the grate, sniffed hard, and snarled. Something clicked back from the darkness. A cold mechanical sound, too precise to be natural. Patel stepped forward, flashlight in hand. "Whatever's in there, it's messing with our systems. We need to seal this section off." He reached for the vent cover. Then the vent moved. Not from his touch, from the inside. The grate bulged outward, like something was pressing against it. Then, suddenly, the metal bent. Mara yanked Patel back just as the vent exploded open. A tangle of wires, black slime, and metal fragments shot out, landing on the floor with a wet thud. It wasn't alive, not exactly, but it pulsed, twitching like muscle fuse of machinery. The crew shouted in shock. "What is that thing?" Patel yelled, backing up. Claws leapt forward, snarling. The creature, or whatever it was, jerked toward him, tiny red lights flickering like eyes. Mara's instinct screamed, "Don't touch it." Too late. A small spark jumped from the thing's surface, arcing across the floor. The lights overhead dimmed, then flickered. "Power surge!" someone shouted. Mara's tablet flashed warnings faster than she could read. "It's feeding off our systems. It's absorbing energy." The creature twitched again, growing larger as sparks danced over it. The smell of hot metal filled the air. Patel grabbed a fire suppressor. "Back up, everyone." He sprayed the creature with white foam, but the chemical didn't stop it. The thing hissed, a mix of static and steam, and slithered toward the nearest power conduit. Claws lunged, teeth bared. He bit into the creature's edge and yanked hard. A spray of sparks burst out. Mara shouted, "Claws, no!" But the cub held firm, growling deep in his throat. The thing tried to wrap around him, cables writhing like tentacles, but claws bit through them one by one. Sparks flew. The lights flickered violently. Then silence. The alien mass stopped moving. It crumbled to the floor like ash, leaving only burnt metal and a faint hum in the air. For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the soft crackle of cooling wires. Patel exhaled slowly. What was that?" Mara stared at the remains, breathing hard. "Something that doesn't belong on this ship." Claws stood on the debris, chest heaving, for singed slightly but unhurt. He looked at Mara, eyes calm now. Patel shook his head. "That little thing saved us again." Mara knelt and gently scooped him up. He purred softly, pressing his head against her chest. She whispered, "Good boy. You felt it before any of us did." Patel sighed. "We'll scan every inch of this ship. If one of those things is here, there could be more." Mara nodded, holding Claws close. "Then we'd better hurry." Because she knew one thing now. That wasn't the only creature hiding inside the Horizon Dawn. It was just the first one brave enough to show itself. The Horizon Dawn was no longer quiet. Warning lights flashed red through the corridors. Sirens wailed in low, steady pulses. The ship's hum had changed, deeper, uneven, alive with fear. Something was spreading. After the creature in the vent was destroyed, Chief Patel ordered a full scan of every section. Within an hour, they found 3 more strange readings, same energy signature, same pattern. One near the power core, another in the med bay, a third near life support. Lieutenant Mara Lynn felt her stomach twist. "They're multiplying," she whispered. Captain Harris stood at the command table, eyes hard. "If those things reach the reactor, this ship is done. We lose power, we lose oxygen, and we lose our people." He looked at Mara. "You and Patel take a team to the core. I'll lead the other group to life support. Contain the threat, whatever it takes." Mara nodded, gripping her tool belt tight. On her shoulder, Claws crouched low, his golden eyes glowing with focus. He hadn't left her side since the last encounter. Patel loaded a plasma cutter and grumbled, "Guess we're pest control now." Mara smiled faintly. "Let's make a clean job." The corridor leading to the reactor bay was dark. Emergency lights flickered every few seconds, painting everything red and black. Sparks rained from the ceiling as the team advanced. The hum of the ship's core grew louder, deeper, like a heartbeat. Claws tensed suddenly, claws digging into Mara's jacket. His ears flattened. He senses something, she said quietly. Patel frowned. Yeah, well, so do I. They turned the corner and stopped. The reactor bay was alive, but not with people. Cables hung from the walls like vines. Pulsing black matter spread across the floor, glistening under the red lights. The parasite had taken root here, feeding directly from the ship's energy source. Oh no, Mara whispered. It's already inside the grid. The thing pulsed again, breathing, then a low rumble filled the air. The parasite opened. Inside, a glowing red core flickered. Something like an eye. It turned toward them. Fall back, Patel shouted. But before they could move, tendrils of black metal shot out, wrapping around a console. The cable sparked violently, and the entire deck trembled. Power drain increasing, yelled one of the engineers. It's eating the reactor output. Mara's heart pounded. If it keeps going, it'll cause a meltdown. The parasite lashed again, tearing through equipment. A panel exploded near Patel, knocking him to the floor. Mara dropped beside him. You okay? Fine, but this thing's faster than we thought. Claws leapt from Mara's shoulder, landing near the reactor. He growled low, teeth bared for bristling. Claws, no, Mara cried. But the cub didn't stop. He stood between the parasite and the humans, tiny but fierce, like a spark defying a storm. The parasite's red core pulsed again. It screeched, a sound like metal grinding against glass, and a wave of static filled the room. The cub leapt. He landed on the creature's surface, biting deep into the pulsing mass. Sparks erupted. The lights flickered wildly. The parasite shrieked, tendrils flailing. Mara's voice cracked. Claws. She tried to run forward, but Patel grabbed her arm. You'll get pulled in too. Claws dug his claws deeper, tearing at the cables. The parasite tried to wrap around him, but the cub's fur began to glow. Faintly at first, then brighter, golden light radiating through the darkness. The light burned through the parasite's cables like fire through paper. Each strand that touched him sizzled and fell apart. Look at that, someone shouted. Mara's breath caught. The little creature was fighting harder than anyone on the ship could. The parasite screamed again, the red core flashing faster, desperate. It lunged one last time, trying to swallow Claws whole. The cub bit straight into its center. A flash of white light exploded through the reactor bay. The blast threw everyone backward. Consoles burst, alarms blared, and then silence. The parasite was gone. The black vines turned to ash. The humming of a ship steadied again, soft and clean. For a moment, no one moved. Then Mara gasped, pushing herself off the floor. Claws. Smoke filled the air. She ran through it, heart pounding. Claws. She spotted him lying near the base of the reactor, small, still, fur singed. She dropped to her knees and lifted him gently. No, no, no. Come on, little hero. Wake up. He didn't move. Tears stung her eyes. Around her, the crew stood in silence. Even Patel, usually full of sarcasm, said nothing. Mara's voice trembled. You saved us. You saved everyone. Then suddenly, hic! The cub twitched. His tail gave a tiny flick. Mara froze. Claws. The little creature opened one golden eye and sneezed. White foam from Patel's fire suppressor puffed out of his nose. The room exploded with laughter and relief. Patel wiped his eyes, shaking his head. Kids tougher than half the crew. Mara laughed through tears, hugging the cub close. You scare me half to death. Claws chirped softly, pressing his head against her chest. Captain Harris's voice came through the comms. Engineering report. Patel answered, still smiling. Threat neutralized, sir. Reactor stable. and our smallest crew member just saved the ship. There was a pause. Then the captain said, "Remind me to add him to the roster." The crew laughed again, but Mara didn't. She looked down at Claus, still resting in her arms, his fur glowing faintly gold in the light. She whispered, "You're more than just a passenger now." And as the ship's alarms faded into silence, one thought filled her mind. They weren't alone in this galaxy, but for once, humanity had found an ally not through power, but through kindness. For the first time in 2 days, the horizon dawn was calm. The alarms were silent. The lights were steady. The engines hummed their familiar, peaceful tune once more. The crew had cleaned the wreckage, sealed the vents, and double-checked every power conduit on the ship. No more strange readings. No more black vines crawling through the walls. The danger was over. But the story, the one everyone would tell for years, had only just begun. Lieutenant Mara Lynn sat in the med bay, her arm wrapped in a small bandage. She didn't care about the cuts, the burns, or the sleepless night she'd endured. All she cared about was a small, silver-furred creature curled up on the bed beside her. Claus was alive, sleeping soundly, chest rising and falling in quiet rhythm. His fur, once scorched and dull, shimmered faintly again under the warm light. Dr. Kellen Voss looked up from his monitor, smiling softly. "Vitals are stable. He's exhausted, but he'll recover." Mara exhaled in relief. "You're sure?" "Positive," Kellen said. Whatever energy he released, it didn't just hurt that parasite. It burned it from the inside out, like he knew exactly how to stop it. Mara looked at the cub with wonder. He saved us all. Word spread fast, faster than light signals ever could. Within hours, every corridor on the horizon dawn buzzed with stories. "Did you hear? The little guy jumped straight into the reactor bay. I swear I saw him glowing. They say he bit the thing in half, like a hero in one of those old Earth cartoons." The crew couldn't stop smiling. Even the most hardened officers found themselves laughing again. For the first time in a long while, the horizon dawn felt alive, not just as a ship, but as a family. Later that day, Captain Harris called for a full crew meeting in the main hall. When Mara arrived, the room was packed. People leaned against the walls. Others sat cross-legged on the floor. Even the bridge crew had abandoned their posts for a moment to be there. The captain stood at the front. His usually stern face softened. "We've seen a lot together," he began. "Radiation storms, engine failures, pirates. But I don't think any of us expected to be saved by something this small." The crowd laughed quietly. He nodded toward Mara, who was holding Claus in her arms. The cub was awake now, eyes bright and alert, tail swishing lazily. Captain Harris continued, "This little one risked his life to save ours. He did what every true crewmate does. He protected his family." He paused and smiled faintly. "So, I suppose we should make it official." Patel stepped forward, holding a small patch, the ship's insignia, shaped like a silver star with a blue horizon line across it. "By order of the Horizon Dawn crew," the captain said, "Claus is hereby recognized as an honorary member of this ship. Rank, mascot, and morale officer." Laughter filled the room, followed by loud applause. Mara grinned as the captain gently pinned the patch to Claus' tiny harness. The cub chirped proudly, puffing out his chest. "Speech," someone shouted. Mara chuckled. "He doesn't talk, but if he did, I think he'd say—" Claus sneezed loudly. The room erupted with laughter. Patel wiped a tear from his eye. "Perfect timing, kid." That evening, the ship drifted silently through space once again. The crew returned to their duties, but there was a new lightness in the air, a shared pride that couldn't be shaken. In her quarters, Mara sat by the small window, watching the stars pass. Claws lay curled beside her, one paw resting on her hand. "You did good today," she whispered. "You reminded everyone what courage looks like." The cub yawned and chirped softly. Mara smiled. "You know, you're not just a passenger anymore. You're a part of us." He blinked slowly, then climbed onto her shoulder, his favorite spot, and looked out the window at her. For a while, they sat in silence, just listening to the soft hum of the ship. Then, without warning, Claus tilted his head and made a low, questioning sound. "What is it?" Mara asked. He stared at the stars, not just at one, but at a cluster of them, glowing faintly blue in the distance. His tail swayed, slow and thoughtful. Mara followed his gaze. The coordinates matched a sector they hadn't explored yet. "Something out there?" she murmured. Claus chirped again, softer this time, then nestled closer to her neck. Mara smiled faintly. "Guess our next adventure's waiting." A few hours later, the captain's log recorded the day's events. Incident resolved. Crew morale high. Reactor stable. The creature known as Claus continues to show remarkable intelligence and loyalty. Humanity's greatest strength isn't its weapons or ships. It's the ability to form bonds in the most unlikely places. Out here, in the endless dark, even the smallest life can remind us why we keep exploring. As the Horizon Dawn continued through the void, its engines gleaming against the stars, a small figure stood at the viewport, a human engineer and her alien companion. The galaxy stretched endlessly before them, full of danger, beauty, and mystery. But tonight, they weren't afraid, because somewhere in that darkness, a tiny hero had proven something that no battle ever could, that even in the coldest corners of space, courage and kindness still shine the brightest. And far beyond, in the silent sea of stars, the echo of a single chirp carried softly through the radio waves, a sound that would later become a symbol, a story, and a legend whispered across human colonies for generations to come. The day an alien cub saved the Horizon Dawn,